And now, oh boy, here we go. It is time for the member specific segment. And when it means we're here with Dimitri Portnoy sitting ahead of us, strap yourselves in, people. All right. Take that, take that Robitussin. Now, here we go.
Sure.
It is about to happen. Dimitri, I'm going to go get my car washed.
Go ahead.
Should that be okay?
Absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, I turn the mic over to Dimitri Portnoy, who is only tangentially going to be talking about the theme old school. Hit it, Dimitri. I look forward to this.
So, how did I come to board games? What was my journey here? Half of my childhood I spent in Kiev, in the Ukraine, in the Soviet Union. We didn't have board games. I didn't have toys.
Didn't have board games?
Nope.
You didn't have chess in the Soviet Union.
I'm talking about board games where you have multiple players, not just two.
Game of
Checkers
means there's one less.
I didn't have Jesse's father to teach me chess and play with me, but one of the things I do remember is being really excited about atlases and maps.
Me too.
And I think that has a huge relationship.
I used to put the National Geographic maps up on the wall in my room.
Yeah, we didn't have National Geographic, but like I can close my eyes now and I can see the way that a city of 100,000 residents is different from a city of 500,000 residents is different from a city of 1,000,000 residents. Mm-hmm. And I would stare at maps for hours, just plotting journeys and seeing where the population centers were, and
figuring out where weak points in the border were and the guard towers.
Sure. How do we invade Alaska and stuff like that? I remember being a part of like a class of 8 brilliant 8-year-olds who were supposed to come up with strategies to conquer Florida or something. But
young pioneers.
Young pioneers. My family moved to America. We spent a year in Chicago, and then we moved to California, and that was an enormous change. Everybody should move to California. Please do so. It is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful place to live, and almost everybody here is an outsider. It's probably the only place that I've been to where it really doesn't matter whether you grew up here.
Okay, that's interesting.
Or people say, where are you from? And, you may be from New Jersey, like Tom. Or like Matt's from West LA, and it really doesn't matter. You don't gain or lose status based on your origin. My friends did not play board games. My friends played RPGs, video games. I remember being aware of LARPs. Although at that time they weren't as structured. People would just put on clothing and go to gaming conventions. My favorite writer, Gene Wolfe, talked about how the genesis of his book of the New Sun was his desire to create a character that people could dress up as. So
just to be clear, that's cosplay as opposed to LARPing, but yeah.
You're right, but I think they're very related. I think you can't have LARPing without cosplay.
No, not true, but that's okay.
Okay.
That's okay. It's all right.
Fine.
It's all
fine.
good.
So my friends read books. My friends listened to music. Again, one of my major victories was being finally invited to the Cool Kids role-playing game.
Because that's when you're really in with the in crowd, when you're playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Sure. But as an immigrant and a non-native English speaker.
Wait, you're an immigrant?
I am, yes.
Are you serious?
And a non-native English speaker.
I've known you 29 years. Why didn't you tell me? Dude,
I didn't even know you were from New Jersey until like a week ago.
Weird. Continue.
Okay, so reading a book was like playing a game, because I had to puzzle things out from context and explore the terrain, formulate strategies, test hypotheses. One of the ways in which I was lucky is back in Russia, I read stories by American writers and English writers in translation. Arthur C. Clarke, Ray Bradbury, Isaac Asimov, Arthur Conan Doyle, the Sherlock Holmes stories. So when I moved here, I read the same stories that I had read in translation in English. I knew what the basic plot and characters were, and I could figure things out from context, figure out the rules. So I engaged with books in a way that I feel right now I'm engaging with games. And one of the things I want to point out is games, most of the games we play are from foreign languages and from foreign language speakers. We play games in translation. Every week I read an article lamenting how Americans are not interested in subtitled movies, are not interested in translated books, from other languages. Well, here's an example of an entire subculture, of an entire cultural exchange where we are interested primarily, or a large segment of us are interested primarily in the cultural product of
Germans, Italians, Portuguese.
Yes, and hopefully soon Chinese and African and all sorts of other people.
Absolutely.
So for me, there is a problem or a moment that that is now ending, or maybe possibly already ended, where we look at stories as being exclusively about quests. And this is in part because Joseph Campbell,
Hero of a Thousand Faces, yes,
was so influential that there are thousands of screenwriting books that tell us that it's a hero's quest where there's one person or a team, but of like-minded individuals against the world, where it's
we're leaving the normal world, we're crossing the threshold.
And all of that. But what I want to focus on is that it's conquest or survival, based on the Odyssey, where Odysseus goes out and kills a bunch of cyclopses, and that's the only thing. Versus games that are multiplayer, where everybody has agency, and where it's rules-based. I mean, the key in a game is to follow the rules. If you win without following the rules, you're not really playing the game.
Your name is Jesse. Yes, continue.
But in a quest, it's about the outcome. It doesn't matter what you do to destroy the ring. Whether you hire an eagle to fly you up there and drop you into the volcano.
Should have been done from the get-go.
Yes, or you traipse across Moria and kill a bunch of people.
Worst plan ever.
Yes. So a quest is, I'm going to introduce a couple of terms.
Uh-oh. So please everybody open to a blank page, sharpen your pencil. DMITRY is going to introduce the nomenclature for the rest of this discussion.
So a quest is teleological. Teleological means it's only about the outcome. That's the only thing that matters. Keep your eye on the prize.
It's the journey, not the destination.
Yes.
Or the other way around. Yeah.
And the game is deontological, meaning rules-based. You follow these rules no matter what. So we are conditioned that to think by Joseph Campbell and his followers, we're leaving the moment now, that books, stories, movies are about quests. But they can also be about games. And in fact, some of my favorite books have always been not descriptions of people going out to kill and conquer, to destroy the ring or whatever, but books about people playing a game, a very meaningful game where all sorts of people can have decisions and make meaningful actions, and anyone can win, and examining the rules by which those games are played. And I'm going to discuss these books. And Tom, I invite you, I think you have a couple of those books on your own. Books like Dune,
Sure.
Which I'm not going to discuss, but as I've said earlier, Dune is a game that takes its rules, very, very, very robust rules and interesting rules, from a book that describes those rules, that describes a world where there are multiple players. And of course, it's also a quest. It's also Paul Muad'Dib's quest. But a book can be both. And a book, in fact, can be about the conflict between a quest and a game.
That's
being
fantastic.
Played by different characters.
So we'll be handling that next time we meet Dimitri in about 8 weeks. We're out of time, but no, it's just this. It was a long intro, so let's jump right into the heart of this so that we can.
Sure. So Ada Palmer, the writer of Terra Ignota, please look her up. She's a LARPer.
I have looked into her a little bit.
Yes, she's a wonderful character. And Terra Ignota, a 4-volume novel, of which 3 are currently out. 2 Like the Lightning, and look that up. That's volume 1. The main character in that book is someone who failed on a quest and is about to embark on another one that's also going to fail. We know that very quickly because they live in a world of rules and a world of players. In the book, 500 years from now, the idea is you choose which laws you follow. It doesn't matter what country you live in. If you want to...
Because countries don't really exist
Countries don't really
anymore.
exist.
Because transportation is virtually instantaneous.
There are
and you can
flying
get anywhere.
cars. They're basically... Yeah. It's a Jetsons world. And if you want to be ruled by a moral individual, you subject yourself to Mason. If you want to be a humanist, you subject yourself to the king of Europe in Spain. If you want to be ruled by psychology, you subject yourself to a kind of a cognitive behaviorist cohort.
Well, but it's even more tribal in the game, in the book, I should say, right? Because you join a bash, which is essentially a tribe, family, extended unit that's based on more than anything common interest, right? To some degree.
That's right. And the book is really about the clash of these rules systems. It's not even. It's a meta game. It's not even about like the players. It's about how these rules can contradict each other and clash. And this failed quest person with a rule-breaking power who needs to make a whole bunch of choices.
Miracles, essentially, is what it can do.
Miracles, yes. It sounds almost as complicated as the Gaia project.
Well, what I find interesting about it is that it's a very hopeful future, and yet it still has some very dark aspects. Like censorship is omnipresent and super strong.
Oh, the book opens with a page of censorship information that is completely incomprehensible. But once you finish it, you go back, you know exactly what it's talking about. It's a book also written in a foreign language in many respects. It has a lot of foreign sounding words whose meaning you have to figure it out from context.
Sure. I mean, going back to Anthony Burgess, a lot of science fiction writers do that.
Russian in Clockwork Orange.
Sure. They morph the language to reflect the, a language's culture, and they use that to show what the society has become.
Absolutely.
Orwell.
One of the ways in which language in this book is different is in the future gender is outlawed. I mean, obviously, biological gender exists.
They only refer to they.
Yes. And the narrator, the hero of the book, very helpfully decides to say, reader, I'm going to help you. I'm going to break this rule, and I'm going to call some people he and some people she. If you know anything, you'll instantly know that they mean something very different. But the further into the book you read, you go, yeah, I know this person is not a woman. But then you realize that almost none of these people that this guy guy that they refer to, the narrator refers to as a he or she, has anything to do with biological gender. And that's, again, a game that the book plays with you.
Well, religion, right? Religion is outlawed, and yet they have sort of a seeker. What are those?
The way the religion functions is you cannot assemble and kill people to promote your religion.
Because the last war was a large religious war.
Yes. So what you do is privately explore religious ideas with a person who is like a psychiatrist or a lawyer and keeps everything confidential.
Seems like it's designed to say that religion caused us some problems, but we realize the need for spiritual connection, and so we're going to give you this little escape valve or something like that.
Of course, as you might imagine, as the book proceeds, very quickly all these rules, the rules about gender and being gendered, the rule about religion and being public about it, get spectacularly broken in many ways.
That's
But
great.
the reason that I'm mentioning it first is that it is, among all these things, a meditation on what it means to be quest-centered, teleological versus game-centered, deontological, and how those are opposites that are also interdependent and dependent on each other, and they will forever be tangoing and waltzing together.
Love it. Next book.
Werner Vinge, A Fire Upon the Deep, is a wonderful space opera that mostly relates to board games in that it presents a galaxy with a complicated geography.
I'm going to apply Cliff Notes to your discussion here. I'm going to say the first book is a dense, very difficult to read and get through book that has a lot of merit once you get into it, but it's a hard access. Fire Upon the Deep is a much more traditional science fiction book in a lot of ways.
That's right. It's basically Star Wars with puppies. The heroes crash land on a planet where there are dog-like aliens in groups of 8 that share a mind in groups of 8, and they're very, very smart.
And space itself has areas where mental connection is more possible.
That's right. The further out from the galaxy center you go, the smarter you become, zones of thought, and also the faster you can go. It's actually variable light speed. Whereas if you go further into the galaxy center, the maximum speed slows down, and also you kind of become dumb. And that's,
which is a little egotistical, because as we all know, we are fairly far out on the spinward arm.
Yes, but again, if we shouldn't be heading in, we should be heading out. That's where the action is. So that kind of map of a galaxy is very much a board game map. It's very much about how the region that you're in affects what you can do, gives you powers or takes powers away, affects how quickly you can move. Plus, part of the fun of this book is there are archives or libraries, some of dead civilizations that have ascended and have left behind their knowledge. And if you discover them, you get technology, you get ideas. Perhaps you'll get possessed by an interdimensional demon that
literally
wants
something
to eat you.
You can do exactly in Eclipse.
In Eclipse, in Terraforming Mars, in so many games. Now, this is a book published in 92. I'm not saying that all game designers read this book, but what I am saying is that Werner Vinge, the writer of A Fire Upon the Deep, was onto something, part of a general conversation in science fiction that was discussing games, that was discussing deontology, discussing rules, discussing geography, discussing multiple players and meaningful decisions versus going on a quest.
Sure.
Now, Asimov's foundation
Sure.
the Foundation trilogy. It's not really a trilogy. It's 8 novellas that were published in 3 books. Is also very much a game. The idea there
in the
is
sense that in the sense that there is one person who knows and everyone else is trying to figure things out.
Asymmetry, asymmetrical powers. There's the idea of a psychohistorian that was able to foresee the next 1,000 years of history where the galactic empire has fallen apart, and how do you preserve civilization?
30,000 years, and he's trying to make it only 1,000 years of a dark age, right?
You're absolutely right. So there are multiple players that have a pathway to victory. They have meaningful choices. And here's a mechanic where somebody knows something. It's asymmetrical knowledge, like Bene Gesserit. But preceding it.
I would say no. I would say the psychohistorian in the Foundation series is Merlin.
Yes.
He knows he knows who is good and who is bad to a large degree, but if he acts on that information, he is going to change. And that's one of the great things about Foundation series, which actually is it fits into Schrodinger's cat, Heidegger's uncertainty principle. Once you open that box, once you introduce your foreknowledge into the equation starts to become unknowable.
So they have to be very careful not to tip their hand.
Non-interventionist.
Yes, but every
like
50
Merlin.
years, exactly. But every 50 years or so, they pop out of a box. A recording of them pops out of a box, and they give advice. That's a very interesting game mechanic that shows up in Avalon. That shows up in a lot of different games.
Doing a little bit, yeah, you're right.
But it's also, interestingly enough, this is published in the late 40s. Nothing about it is like a quest. Foundation is a planet that's meant to preserve and resurrect galactic civilization.
Spoiler alert, 2 planets.
There is a second Foundation, but
shh.
But Foundation is a planet founded by psychohistorians that is supposed to preserve and resurrect galactic civilization after the period of the Dark Ages. They don't conquer. They don't conquer. They don't go anywhere. They don't have to travel through space to discover themselves.
They have to survive.
They have to survive. They stay put. And how do they survive? They follow rules. Mm-hmm. They follow rules that they themselves discover. Yes, ultimately, it's about survival and passing on civilization. But the way they do it is deontologically. And one of the other ways they do it is by acknowledging that people who want to conquer them or people who want to take them over are actually also game players with meaningful actions. And the way they survive is finding out the rules that the opponent is using.
Sure.
And usually either turning them against them or sometimes allying with them.
Well, the way I like to describe it is they are looking to put their finger on the scale with the lightest touch and the least number of times they possibly can to ensure their own survival so that they can keep doing that just enough.
Yes. Worker placement.
Yeah.
Efficiency, resources, and this is late 40s. This is after we defeated
balance. I would say balance is a big concept, and that's important.
Yes. This is after we defeated Hitler, when we're Marshall planning and rebuilding Europe. Again, this is a very advanced view of the world as multiplayer, as deontological, non-apocalyptic. We're not destroying the ring. We're not defeating Sauron. We're finding a balance.
Ladies and gentlemen, something very odd is happening here. I just want to let you know I'm understanding what Dmitry's saying. I apologize in advance. I don't know what is going on, but
no, just converting you is such a pleasure.
We're running out of time, so let's find your big finale. Find your wrap up. What else you got?
The big finale is that the granddaddy of all of these, the granddaddy of the quest versus the game, the granddaddy of the rules versus the end goal is Plato's Republic.
Sure.
If you remember in Plato's Republic, the ideal society is ruled by philosopher kings.
Well, it's really, from my perspective as a fiction writer, it is an anti-poetic rant.
Oh, yeah. Who's excluded from Plato's Republic?
The poets.
The poets. Poets who are going to tell stories about quests. Poets who are going to tell us about Odysseus killing Cyclops and pillaging and all that. And
Hashtag Team Homer.
Yeah,
Straight.
sure,
That's
sure.
me.
So Plato really hates them. The thing I want to instill is that actually both storytelling and gaming are always present. Gaming is present in books. Storytelling, as I pointed out with Tapestry, is present in games. And
do not use Tapestry. You're destroying your own argument.
Oh, Tapestry. Oh, I'm sorry. The game of the year, the game of the decade. I apologize.
It does not tell a good story at all.
I'm going to make it personal a little bit here. Okay. So,
wow.
Tom, your brother-in-law, Paul, who's a really dear friend of mine, when he asks me, Dmitry, why did you do this? Usually referring to some kind of mistake I made or some kind of faux pas or something hugely abominable. and I say, well, Paul, see, this happened and then I did this and then this happened and then I did this. And Paul says, Dmitry, you're telling me a story. No. I want to know, why did you do this? In other words, don't tell me a story. Tell me what rule you were following.
Yeah, the logic.
The logic behind the game logic.
Yes.
That you were following. I wasn't necessarily following a rule, but I actually was. Both are important. And the great philosopher that tells us that both are important is Seinfeld. Because
Dmitry, I just want to say publicly, I love you.
I love you too, Tom. I'm going from Plato to Seinfeld, and my favorite episode of Seinfeld, which is not The Contest. I know everybody's favorite episode is The Contest, but it's the yada, yada, yada episode.
Okay.
And it's the episode where you go, oh, so we went out to a bar that week, and you know how I'm allergic to silk. Yada, yada, yada. And I woke up in China next to the premier minister. So,
I believe the killer joke in that episode is we went out to a nice dinner. I had some awesome lobster bisque. Afterwards, yada yada yada. I woke up in his bed in the morning. It's like, you yada 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 over the best part. No, I mentioned the bisque.
Yes. So the moral lesson, and thank you for that wonderful thing. I wish you had done it in the New York Jewish accent. I know you're capable of it.
Wow.
But yeah, Upper West Side. You're all about that. The thing in that episode is that you need storytelling and rules. You can't just say rules and then a whole bunch of things happened and then this is the result. You need both. You need both deontology and teleology. You need both storytelling and game playing. You need both multiplayer and quests to explain a lot of things in life. You have to go through the steps. You have to tell the story according to the rules.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was the inimitable Dmitry Portnoy telling you to wake up, sheeple, and get out of your teleological constructs that are binding you to a meaningless existence.
And philosopher kings and poets should get along.
Philosopher kings can bite me. That is poets all the way. Team poet. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Dmitry Portnoy. What can I say beyond that? It is absolutely phenomenal.